Living in some parts of the United States is getting a lot more expensive, and not just a little. In several states, the cost of living is rising faster than incomes. For many people, that gap is starting to hurt. What's even more interesting, it's not happening randomly. Some states are seeing housing prices spike. Others are dealing with rising taxes, insurance costs, or population surges. In many cases, it's a combination of all of these at once. So, what's really driving these changes? Today on Travel Lens by Jason, we're breaking down 10 states that are getting harder to afford, and more importantly, why it's happening right now. Because once you understand the patterns behind these rising costs, you'll start to see something most people miss. Affordability isn't just about where things are expensive today. It's about where things are heading next. A few of these states might seriously surprise you. If you enjoy content that helps you make smarter decisions about where to live, invest, or retire, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and stick around until the end. The final state on this list is changing faster than almost anyone expected. Let's start with number 10. Number 10, North Carolina. Let's start with a state that has quietly been one of the biggest magnets for new residents, North Carolina. For years, it was seen as a relatively affordable place to live, especially compared to high-cost states in the Northeast and West Coast. But that reputation is starting to shift. The secret is out, and the price of entry is rising. The biggest thing getting more expensive here? Housing. Home prices and rent have both climbed significantly. In cities like Charlotte and Raleigh, the numbers are staggering. In early 2026, median home prices in Raleigh have hit roughly $430,000. That is a world away from where things stood just a few years ago. At first glance, you might think it's just normal growth, but there's more going on beneath the surface. One of the main reasons is a massive population influx. People are moving into North Carolina in record numbers. They are coming from New York, California, and Florida. They are looking for lower costs and a better quality of life. But here's the catch. Demand has officially outpaced the hammers. Housing supply hasn't been able to keep up with the thousands of new arrivals every month. And when demand rises faster than supply, prices go up. But that's not the only factor. North Carolina is also experiencing a high-tech gold rush. Industries like biotech, finance, and healthcare are exploding. Apple and Meta have planted deep roots in the research triangle. That is great for the economy, but it brings in a new wave of high-income workers. They come with larger budgets. They push bidding wars into the mainstream. What used to be an affordable alternative is starting to look like the places people were trying to leave. Long-time residents are feeling a major squeeze. For the first time, over 1 million low-income households in the state are officially cost-burdened. Renters are seeing double-digit increases. First-time buyers are being priced out of their own hometowns. The state's flat income tax is dropping to 3.99% in 2026, which helps. But when you factor in property tax assessments that follow rising home values, the savings start to vanish. The gap is closing, and it's closing fast. But the next state? It's dealing with a completely different kind of pressure, one that is less about jobs and more about a major advantage that might be turning into a burden. Number 9, Arizona. Arizona has been one of the fastest growing states in the country, but that growth is coming with a massive hidden tax. For years, it was an affordable alternative to California, but the desert is getting expensive and fast. The biggest pressure point here? Housing and utilities. Cities like Phoenix and Tucson have seen major increases in home prices. In early 2026, the average home value in Arizona is hovering around $420,000. While prices have stabilized slightly from the post-pandemic peak, they remain nearly 50% higher than they were in 2019. But Arizona's situation goes a step further than just population growth. It is a battle over limited resources. Water scarcity is no longer a future problem. It is a today problem. In 2026, the state is facing an 18% cut in its allocation from the Colorado River. This isn't just about shorter showers. It's about the assured water supply laws. If a developer can't prove there is enough water for the next 100 years, they can't build. This has effectively hit the brakes on new subdivisions in several high-demand areas. When you stop building in a state where 100,000 new people arrive every year, the math gets ugly. Limited supply plus surging demand equals a permanent floor under high prices. On top of that, your monthly survival costs are spiking. Utility companies like APS and TP have implemented significant rate hikes in 2026, some as high as 14%. In a state where air conditioning isn't a luxury but a life-saving necessity, these bills are becoming a second mortgage. The average summer electric bill in Phoenix now frequently tops $300 a month. And this is where the bigger trend shows up. Climate is becoming a direct tax on affordability. Living in Arizona is getting expensive because maintaining a civilization in harsh, dry conditions is becoming a luxury. Infrastructure, water transport, and a stressed power grid all cost money. And that cost is being passed to you. Arizona used to be the go-to destination for the budget-conscious Southwest. Now, it is a cautionary tale of how environmental limits can break a housing market. But the next state, it might be even more surprising. Its affordability challenges aren't coming from the heat or the water, but from a major advantage that has started to backfire. Number 8, Tennessee. Tennessee has long been known for one major advantage: no state income tax. For years, that made it a magnet. It was a haven for retirees. It was a dream for remote workers. Everyone wanted to stretch their dollars further. People flocked to the volunteer state for the discount. But recently, the math has changed. The reality on the ground is shifting. The biggest issue? Rapidly rising housing costs. Cities like Nashville have exploded. They aren't just popular, they are overwhelmed. This isn't just about more people moving in. It's about who is buying the land. Demand has surged from every direction. You have new residents competing for space. You have massive institutional investors. You have a booming short-term rental market. This creates a perfect storm for locals. When investors enter a market, they move fast. They often buy in all cash. They skip inspections. They outbid families by thousands. This prices out the regular buyer. It turns the American dream into a bidding war. As a result, home prices have spiked. They are rising much faster than local wages. But there is another layer to this story. Tennessee needs revenue to function. If they don't tax your paycheck, they tax your spending. Tennessee has some of the highest sales taxes in the country. Some areas hit nearly 10% at the register. Property taxes are also creeping up in high-growth zones. So, people move in expecting a bargain. Then they see the grocery receipt. Then they see the utility bills. They find that day-to-day life is expensive. The tax savings get swallowed by the cost of living. And here's the bigger insight. Tax-friendly doesn't always mean cost-friendly. Affordability is eroding. It is happening quietly. It is happening consistently. For long-time residents, the pressure is mounting. Their property taxes rise as their neighborhoods gentrify. For newcomers, the cheap life is a myth. Expectations are hitting a wall of reality. This trend of hidden costs is a recurring theme. It's happening in multiple states on this list. But the next one, it's dealing with a much more direct factor. It is unavoidable, and it's pushing costs up faster than anyone predicted. Number 7, Florida. Florida has been the headline story for years. It is a land of sunshine and palm trees. People have been moving here in record numbers. They are drawn by the heat. They are drawn by the lack of a state income tax. They want that famous, relaxed lifestyle. But there's a storm brewing beneath the surface. The real cost of living in Florida is skyrocketing. It isn't just a slight bump. It is a massive shift. And the primary culprit isn't what you think. The biggest factor? The insurance crisis. Home insurance premiums in Florida haven't just grown. They have exploded. We aren't talking about a 5% or 10% increase. Many homeowners are seeing their annual premiums double. Some have seen them triple in just a few years. Why is this happening? It comes down to risk. Florida is the most hurricane-prone state in the country. The storms are getting more frequent. They are getting more intense. The damage is getting more expensive to repair. Insurance companies are crunching the numbers. They are seeing the payouts climb. Many are adjusting their rates to stay afloat. Others are simply giving up. They are leaving the state entirely. When insurers leave, competition dies. Fewer options remain for the homeowner. Lower supply always leads to higher prices. But that is only one piece of the puzzle. Population growth has sent housing prices into the stratosphere. People relocating from high-cost states like New York or California brought massive buying power. They paid over the asking price. They pushed local values up for everyone. Now do the math. Combine those high home prices with soaring insurance. Add in rising property taxes. Don't forget the everyday inflation at the pump and the store. Suddenly, tax-friendly feels like a trap. This creates a unique, crushing pressure. Even if you own your home outright, no mortgage at all, your monthly holding costs are still climbing. You can't hide from the insurance bill. You can't hide from the tax man. This highlights a massive national trend. Climate-related costs are now a primary driver of affordability. For retirees on fixed incomes, this is a crisis. The dream is becoming a financial burden they can no longer ignore. They move for the sun, but they're staying for the bills. But the next state, it's dealing with something entirely different. It isn't the weather causing the pain. It is a cost problem driven by deep, long-term economic structures. Number 6, Colorado. Colorado has always been the gold standard for the modern American lifestyle. It is a world of natural beauty. It is the capital of the outdoor industry. It has a job market that remains remarkably strong. But there is a growing shadow over the mountains. Over time, the state has become significantly more expensive. Affordability is no longer a concern. It is a crisis. The biggest pressure point? The housing trap. Cities like Denver and Boulder have seen sustained increases in home prices and rent. This isn't a sudden spike like we saw in other states. In Colorado, the rise has been gradual, steady, and relentless. That is exactly what makes it so dangerous. Because over decades, those increases compound. The math is simple, but the solution is not. One of the main reasons is a limited housing supply. Geography plays a massive role here. You have the majestic Rocky Mountains to the west. You have vast stretches of protected land. There's only so much space available for expansion. You can't just build outward forever. At the same time, the state is a magnet. It continues to attract high-earning young professionals. It is a top destination for remote workers. So, you have a constant stream of new demand, hitting a physical wall that limits supply. That imbalance is a permanent upward pressure on prices. But there is another factor at play. Colorado has invested heavily in itself. The state prioritizes high-quality infrastructure. It funds aggressive environmental protection. It maintains top-tier public services. While these make the state a great place to live, they aren't free. They contribute to a higher baseline cost of living. And this is where the demographic shift happens. Colorado is becoming selectively affordable. If you are a high-income earner, you can manage the climb. But for the middle class and the service workers, the air is getting thin. For renters, the pressure is becoming unsustainable. Here is the deeper insight. When price increases happen slowly, you don't notice the water boiling until it's too late. Colorado is reaching that tipping point. The lifestyle is starting to cost more than a salary for many. But the next state, it is already past the breaking point. Its affordability challenges are tied to something most people completely overlook. Number 5, Idaho. Idaho might be the most surprising entry on this list. Not long ago, it was the ultimate hidden gem. It was considered one of the most affordable places in the entire country. But recently, that story has flipped, and it happened fast. The biggest issue? A massive surge in home prices. Cities like Boise haven't just seen growth. They have seen some of the fastest housing price spikes in American history. And the driver behind this shift is a familiar one, but on a much more intense scale: mass migration. During and after the pandemic, Idaho became a primary destination. It was a top choice for people fleeing high-cost hubs like California and Washington. They weren't just looking for mountains. They were looking for a bargain. And when they arrived, they brought big city budgets with them. They didn't just compete for homes. They dominated the market. They were able to outbid local buyers. often by six figures and often in all cash. That demand sent home prices into the stratosphere. But here is where the math breaks. Local incomes in Idaho did not rise at the same pace. The economy wasn't built for Silicon Valley salaries. Now there's a massive growing gap. There's what homes cost, and then there's what the average Idahoan actually earns. This is a textbook example of a broader national trend. When high-income migration hits a small local economy, affordability vanishes almost overnight. But the pain doesn't stop at the mortgage. As home values skyrocket, property taxes follow. Rental prices have climbed alongside them. And because Idaho's infrastructure wasn't designed for the sudden gold rush, there's immense pressure on public services and road development. For long-time residents, the shift is heartbreaking. What used to be accessible now feels impossible. For newcomers, the cheap alternative they saw on Zillow 2 years ago is gone. The discount has expired. But the next state, it takes a different angle entirely. In this case, the cost of living isn't just about migration or supply. Affordability is being shaped heavily by deliberate policy decisions. Number 4, Illinois. Illinois presents a very different kind of affordability challenge. Because here, it's not just about housing demand or population growth. It's about taxes and long-term financial structure. At first glance, Illinois doesn't always seem expensive. It doesn't have the flashy price tags of California or New York. But when you look closer, the cost pressures are some of the most intense in the country. The biggest factor? The property tax burden. Illinois consistently ranks among the highest in the nation for property tax rates. In 2026, the statewide effective rate is approximately 2.07%. For many homeowners, that doubles or triples the tax bill of neighboring states. It significantly increases the true cost of ownership, even if the home price itself seems reasonable. But why are these taxes so high? It isn't just local services. A major reason is the state's massive pension obligations. Illinois currently carries over $140 billion in unfunded pension debt. These financial commitments require constant revenue. That revenue often comes directly from your property taxes. That debt is passed directly to residents every single year. But there's another layer to this struggle. Unlike high-growth states, Illinois has faced years of stagnant population growth. While there was a slight uptick recently, the long-term trend shows people leaving. So now you have a difficult cycle. Fewer people are left to share the tax burden, while the state's massive financial obligations remain unchanged. That creates constant upward pressure on taxes for those who stay. This leads to a frustrating dynamic for buyers. Housing might look affordable on a Zillow listing, but once you factor in the second mortgage of taxes, utilities, and high sales tax, which can hit nearly 9%, the math stops working. The total cost of living is much higher than the sticker price. This is a different kind of affordability issue. It isn't driven by a hot market or new residents. It's driven by a legacy of long-term financial decisions. For residents, these costs feel persistent. They feel unavoidable. They feel like they are paying for the past while trying to live in the present. But now we're moving into the top 3. This is where the speed of change really accelerates. Because the next states aren't just getting more expensive. They're transforming faster than almost anywhere else in America. Number 3, Nevada. Nevada has long been the ultimate middle ground state. It offered a low-tax lifestyle without the extreme price tags of its neighbor, California. For years, the economy hummed along on tourism, entertainment, and a steady stream of new residents. But recently, the Silver State has seen its shine start to fade under a new reality. Housing costs are rising much faster than the local economy can handle. Cities like Las Vegas and Reno aren't just growing. They are transforming. This isn't just about more people moving in. It is about a fundamental mismatch in the state's financial DNA. The core issue? An economy built on service, meeting a housing market built for wealth. Nevada relies heavily on hospitality and tourism. These sectors drive the state, but they also create a specific kind of income profile. Service workers are the backbone of the Strip and the casinos. But while their jobs are essential, their wages haven't kept pace with the new Zoomtown reality. During the pandemic, a wave of high-income remote workers hit Nevada. They wanted the California lifestyle without the California income tax. They brought massive buying power to a market that wasn't ready for it. What happened next was predictable but painful. They outbid local families. They drove up rents. They treated $500,000 homes like bargains, while those same homes became impossible dreams for a food runner or a dealer making $55,000 a year. The affordability gap didn't just grow, it became a canyon. Today, a typical Las Vegas family needs an income of roughly $120,000 to comfortably afford a median-price home. But the actual median household income is closer to $78,000. The math simply does not add up for the people who actually keep the state running. And supply isn't coming to the rescue. Nevada has a unique problem. 85% of the land is federally owned. There's a literal physical limit on where new homes can be built. This restricted inventory keeps prices high, even when demand slightly cools. For residents, the pressure is constant. Affordability isn't just about the price tag. It's about the alignment of costs and wages. In Nevada, that balance is broken. The cheap state is now a place where you need a white-collar salary to live in a blue-collar town. But the next state, it takes this challenge to a whole new level. Here, the demand isn't just surging. It is reshaping the entire identity of the housing market. And the hidden costs, here are some of the most aggressive on the list. Number 2, Georgia. Georgia, especially the Atlanta metro area, has been experiencing rapid growth over the past decade. And with that growth comes opportunity, but also rising costs. The biggest pressure point here? Housing and urban expansion. Atlanta has become a major hub for business, technology, and entertainment. That's brought in new residents, new jobs, and new investment. But it's also brought something else. Increased competition for housing. Home prices and rent have climbed steadily, particularly in and around major job centers. And while development is ongoing, it hasn't fully kept up with the pace of demand. But here's where it gets interesting. Unlike some states where affordability issues are concentrated in one or two cities, Georgia's cost increases are spreading outward. Suburban and even some rural areas are seeing rising prices. Why? Because as cities become more expensive, people move farther out looking for affordability. But when enough people do that, those areas become more expensive too. This creates a ripple effect across the state. And there's another layer. Infrastructure, like roads, transportation, and public services, takes time to expand. So as more people move into growing areas, congestion and service demand increase. That can indirectly raise costs through longer commutes, higher transportation expenses, and increased local taxes. And this highlights a key insight. Growth doesn't just increase opportunity. It increases pressure. For residents, that means the cost of living isn't just rising in obvious ways like rent. It's rising in everyday expenses that add up over time. Georgia is still more affordable than many coastal states, but the direction is clear. Costs are rising and they're spreading. But the number one state on this list, it brings together multiple trends at once, and it's becoming one of the clearest examples of how quickly affordability can change. Number 1, Texas. Texas has always been the ultimate destination for the American dream. It was a land of opportunity, big houses, and even bigger savings. No state income tax, a powerhouse job market, and housing prices that made coastal elites do a double take. But the Texas miracle is hitting a wall of reality. The perception of Texas as a budget state is officially shifting. Texas takes the number 1 spot, not just because it's getting expensive, but because of the sheer speed and scale of the transformation. The biggest issue? A triple threat of economic pressures. Rising home prices, staggering property taxes, explosive population growth. Cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston haven't just grown, they have been reinvented. Austin, in particular, became the Silicon Hills, attracting tech giants and thousands of high-earning workers. And we know the rule. When demand moves faster than builders can pour concrete, prices go vertical. But Texas has a hidden cost that catches everyone off guard. Texas doesn't have an income tax, so the state has to get its revenue from somewhere else. That somewhere is your home. Texas has some of the highest property tax rates in the nation. In many counties, residents are paying 2% or more of their home's value every single year. So, even if you find a reasonable home price, your monthly holding costs can be higher than a state with income tax. As home values skyrocket, those tax bills follow. Someone who bought a home 5 years ago might find their tax bill has nearly doubled. This tax trap is where the math falls apart for middle-class families. But there is more. The influx of tech and finance firms has brought a new wave of wealth into the state. This drives up the cost of everything, from a gallon of milk to a contractor's hourly rate. Higher wages in the market push housing demand even further. Here is a key insight. Texas is experiencing compounded inflation. Population growth, corporate relocation, and a heavy tax structure are all feeding into each other. They are amplifying the pain. For longtime residents, the cheap Texas they grew up in is vanishing. Their property taxes are pricing them out of their own neighborhoods. For newcomers, the savings they expected are being eaten by the tax man and the insurance agent. Texas is number one because it represents the biggest gap between expectation and reality. It isn't just getting more expensive. It is changing its identity faster than any other state in the union. So, what does all this tell us? Affordability in the U.S. isn't static. It is shifting. The safe, budget-friendly states are evolving in ways we didn't expect. Whether it's population growth, housing shortages, or climate-related costs, these forces are reshaping the American map. And here's the key takeaway. It's not just about where things are expensive today. It's about where the costs are heading tomorrow. When you see these patterns early, you can make smarter decisions. You can plan ahead. You can invest wisely. Some of these changes are slow. Others are happening at lightning speed. But they are all connected by one truth. Demand is shifting, and the price tag is following. So, I'm curious, which of these states surprised you the most? Have you personally noticed these costs rising in your own backyard? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button and subscribe to Travel Lens by Jason. Check out our next video where we explore the states that are still holding on to their affordability. For now, I'll see you in the next one.